Hello and welcome to another session of Informally Formal. Today we're going to be talking about education and learning in the 21st century. And we have with us Professor Imran Rahman. And he is the special advisor to the Board of Trustees and Dean School of Business at the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. A previous ULAB Vice Chancellor, he remains a key policymaker and oversees two research centers, IT strategy, as well as international affairs and engagement with industry. Now, prior to joining ULAB, he was a finance faculty at IBA, Dhaka University for 22 years. So without further ado, welcome, Imran Rahman. How are you?
Thank you, Akbar. I'm fine, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Let's just dive into our first question, which is how do you see universities, how are they dealing with the pandemic?
It hit us very badly, not only universities, but all educational institutions. But so depends. You see, I see that the universities have pretty much managed to switch to online lesson delivery, particularly the private universities. The public universities are absolutely stuck. They have not, since the closure of all classes, they have basically been shut, both physically and also virtually. They're shut. There are no online classes being happening for a variety of reasons which they are claiming.
That is very, very unfortunate indeed. Very unfortunate indeed. Anyways, like you said, Imran, the entire world is reeling from the pandemic. And institutions, academic institutions, as well as businesses are making do with whatever tools are at their disposal. So I'm very glad to hear, at least, that the private universities have taken a lead in at least continuing some form of communication with the students and some form of classes and stuff that I suppose are ongoing. Even at ULAB, is that correct? So would you tell us, ULAB, what all are you doing? How are you doing conducting classes and stuff online, I suppose, but just very briefly.
Sure. I think at ULAB, we had an advantage because we had been using an online learning management system, which is called Moodle. It's a very globally acceptable, it's free, it's freeware. But we've been using it for the last 6 years in parallel to our classroom, yes. So what happened is that more or less all teachers of ULAB and most of our students are kind of used to this platform. So it was the switch to fully online was not as difficult as we had anticipated. There are two aspects. One is the actually delivery of the lessons, video delivery, that we are using a combination of Zoom and Google Meet for the actual lesson delivery. And the teacher is sitting in his or her home and students are logging in and taking the lessons. And we can share the teacher can share this computer screen and everything else. So that's one part. The other part is we are also simultaneously using a learning management system like Moodle, like Google Classroom. These are the two ones we use. So it's a combination of both. You know, ideally we would have wanted one system which included both the learning management system and the online lesson delivery, but those are expensive. But it is working. The main point is that this technology is working pretty successfully. It's not that all students 100% students are happy with it. There are some students, especially who are living in remote places, who complain to us about internet connectivity, lack of a laptop, etc. But we are separately dealing with them.
By the way, I commend our government for having the foresight to start this digitalization of Bangladesh. But then at the same time, that report that you shared was pretty scathing in the sense that our broadband connectivity and the speed is rather lacking, isn't it?
It is slow. And, I think this is one area which is, you see, a broadband is like it's like a road. Right? It's like nowadays probably it's more important than a road. So the same thinking that goes behind building a new road should be behind providing broadband.
What are the current challenges that you see with our education system?
Where do I start? Well, I think, what we have right now are numbers. You hear about so many lakhs in higher education, so many girls in education, so many literate, but these are just numbers. And the government itself has actually said that, we need to go below that and look at quality. And that is an area across the board, I think we have a lot of work to do. The whole question of education has to be on the learning objective, outcomes. And that is nowhere in Bangladesh has been there. Only recently, we have started the journey towards outcome-based learning. And I want to thank the UGC of Bangladesh for driving this. We are all universities, private, public, are now having to completely reviewing and upgrading our learning management system so that it is, it is close to some kind of a global standard. Unfortunately, the challenges start from primary school, and we get sort of our product reaches us when they're 18, 19, 20, whatever. But they come in with such severe challenges in learning, such severe communication problems. I'm talking about the majority. The challenge and the solution has to start from the bottom.
Kids at the primary school and middle schools and so on, they're most of the time, by the time they come to undergraduate programs, they have just, how shall I put it, memorized things just to get a grade. They have just regurgitated at exams. And so now that leads me to the very important findings and some of the reports that come out of OECD, World Economic Forum, studies by various organizations that now say in the 21st century, the skill sets that are changing and changing very rapidly. So regardless of how good you do in school, even in an undergraduate program, if you come out of the education system and then you're not capable of critical thinking, you're not capable of problem solving, you don't have some of the soft skills that are needed to survive in the workplace of the 21st century, what do you say to that?
Well, you've really hit the nail on the head. I would say, by and large, our educational system, particularly universities, have done a very poor job of embedding the learning of skills in their taught programs. Okay. So traditionally we've thought, okay, we'll teach this guy whatever, he's doing a bachelor's in economics, and we just think that, oh, he will pick up the skills necessary. It'll just happen. Nothing just happens like that. You have to actually work at it. You have to design your curriculum so that during the 4 years of an undergrad degree, a student is going to have a good shot at picking up the skills necessary. Of course, again, this starts much earlier. We're including 4 sets of these soft skills as a mandatory requirement of graduation. These are non-credit but mandatory, so the students must go through these learnings. Now, let me just focus on the most important thing you talked about, which is critical thinking skills. For the 21st century, this is so important. Our education system actually penalizes students who actually try to do thinking, write in their own words, they penalize it. And you see, here the critical thing is teachers. We do not have trained teachers who are able to deliver the 21st century teaching pedagogy. So the very average teacher, he just compares the answer to the textbook. Okay, how does it tally? If it tallies well, he gets an A. If the student writes a brilliant answer, which is not in the textbook, the teacher will say, oh, I don't know what this is. What is this? So give them an F.
Absolutely.
So that's the other thing, sorry to interrupt. See, the other thing is, of course, in the 21st century, students must have the ability to learn by themselves for the rest of their lives. They must have a love of learning, and they also must know the skill of how are you able to sit down, let's say do a edX course or a LinkedIn course or a Coursera course on your own and have the confidence that I can do it.
Let me supplement what you said. As I'm sure you are well aware that, study after study has come out from Harvard, from Yale, from Case Western, all the best schools. A lot of these schools have done studies where it has shown very clearly 80 to 85% of success in life has nothing to do with the hard skills that you learn in your education system, that comes from the education system. I might add, Imran, that they say that, by the time you start your undergraduate program and by the time you graduate, let's say 4 years, okay? I think there is a statistic that says about 40% of the stuff that you have learned by the time you started in this fast changing world is going to be, one way or another, will have changed. Either completely disappear or will have changed. So that goes to validate the point that the kids ought to be taught not so much so on the specifics. Of course, they gotta know. If you want to be an engineer, you got to learn the basics of engineering. You want to study economics, you got to understand micro, macro, and what have you. But beyond that, the thinking skills and all that stuff. And one last thing I might add. It's one of my favorite movies, 3 Idiots. In 3 Idiots, the professor asks the student, Amir Khan, how does a machine work? Machine kya hai? So he simply says, machine is something that makes your life a little easier. He goes, what the hell is that supposed to mean? What's the definition? Anyways, I'm glad. Anyways, let's move on, Imran. This is such a dear topic to me. The state of education, where it's headed and stuff. There's so much to be done. Would you now care to tell us how do you see private universities versus state public universities in Bangladesh? Give us the dynamics. What goes on in your mind when you think about that?
Well, I keep hearing that there are no distinctions, particularly coming from the government, that all are universities. But there are distinctions. And this distinction actually is made by the government. I look at universities, private or public, as doing the same job. We're all doing the same job. Same job, except the only thing is that funding is different. For a public university, the taxpayers of the country are footing the bill. So the accountability should be to the taxpayers of every taka which is invested there. For private universities, we get not a single taka of taxpayers' money. We are completely dependent on the fees paid by the students, which is, so we are accountable to the parents for paying the fees. Mostly it's the parents paying the fees. So, but otherwise it's the same. So sometimes I think that there should be far greater accountability of public universities because you're using taxpayers' money, including, let's say, the tax paid by a small farmer somewhere whose own son will probably never go to university. But his money is being used to teach somebody else. So, how his money is being used, whether it's being used efficiently, whether there are leakages along the way, far greater accountability must be there. Otherwise, I see also a problem with governance. Universities must be allowed to be independent.
Absolutely.
Too much micromanagement holds us back. And I see that with any area of Bangladeshi affairs, where there is an oversight body or a monitoring body, which can unnecessarily meddle and get into too much details. I'll tell you what the problems are. You talked about that 40% of what is being taught is probably obsolete. I completely agree. And I actually checked it. If I want to change the curriculum, I have to send the curriculum to the UGC, right? And I don't see why. Why can't you leave it to us? We are the experts. Why do I have to send it to the UGC, who obviously by themselves don't have the capability of looking at it? They will send it to some expert, right? Now, if that expert is somebody who's close to retirement, that expert will take a red pen and cut off everything because he hasn't or she hasn't seen this. He doesn't know. So we get back a revised syllabus which has all these red lines. And all the innovative stuff, all the global stuff we put in are all crossed out.
Some oversight is definitely needed because in Bangladesh we do see some issues as well. So some oversight, but for the most part, I agree with you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. For the most part, I agree with you. One other thing, Imran, if you really think about I'm going to my earlier point that you had discussed as well. You know, two very important things in this. One is parenting. Everyone agrees that is the most important task there is. Unfortunately, there is no training that comes with becoming a parent. Okay. Similarly, understand education. Just because you got a master's degree or you got a doctorate degree, they allow you now, you're qualified to teach. I think that is a huge mistake. Like the saying goes, you can take a horse to the water, you can't make him drink it. There is a fundamental flaw in there where they teach, you have the hard skills, but you do not necessarily have the soft skills. It is not that the teachers do not want to provide the best teaching. Obviously they do. Sometimes they lack in the training, which we ought to work on. Sometimes the curriculum needs to be more interesting, more engaging. So I want you to leave today's discussion with some encouraging words for the students and what all you are doing, your university is doing to bridge that gap.
So I agree with most of what you said, that once we used to hear that good teachers are born. This is a fallacy. Good teachers can be trained. At ULAB also, we've decided that no, good teachers have to have continuous training starting from day one. We have orientation. We've created a Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, CETL. And the whole purpose of this is to develop the teaching and learning skills of our faculty members so that they can cope with the demands of the 21st century learning. Most of the students coming into university are switched off learning because their first 12 years of education has been very difficult. Where they've sat in a classroom, there's only one way communication, they had no role in the learning process. So our first task is how to remotivate them towards learning, how to put them in the center of the learning process, not in the periphery. Traditionally in Bangladesh, we thought respect is only one way. Even me, who I thought, I was such a great teacher coming from IBA, I have something to learn here. Like, I have to learn to respect my students.
So Imran, do you guys do some sort of teacher evaluation by students? Do you guys do that?
Oh, of course. 100%. From day one, ULAB, all students evaluate all teachers in all courses. Not only that, they do two evaluations. One is on the teacher, the other is on the course.
Learning is a lifetime process. How do you inculcate that into your students where they understand that they have a piece of paper that says that they have a degree from such and such a university? That doesn't mean diddly. I mean, most of your learning is going to come after you've graduated, you've started working in your professional life. That's where most of the learning is going to come from. And what do you do to inculcate that thinking in them, that learning is nothing to do with the grades you get or this system that you're going through right now. Your learning is a lifelong thing. What do you do specifically to get them excited about learning? What are teachers doing?
The first thing is to get them excited. The first thing is to get them to enjoy the learning process. Make the learning experience an enjoyable one. The other thing is students in universities are clueless about, about skills, about what employability skills, soft skills, what employers are looking for. They are clueless because there is such a divide between taught thing and the real life. There is no industry, academic collaboration is hardly there in Bangladesh. We have all these training programs to teach them how to do interview, how to prepare a CV, a soft skill, and we tell them this is important. But they've been told by their parents, by society, that the degree certificate is enough. So I have to work against, completely revising this mindset that the piece of paper in your hand means nothing. At best, your CGPA will help you get an interview, at best. After that, it is just throw it out of the window. After that, once you're there, what is inside of you is going to be assessed. And that will determine whether you get a job, what's going to be your salary, starting salary, what's going to be your future career progression. All of this depends on what is inside of you, what you've picked up all along the way from primary school to university.
Imran, for what is worth, for your teachers at in your school and teachers all over, here is what I believe: no one cares what you know till they know you care. I wish if the teachers would understand that. But one last thing I wanted to discuss with you a little bit. In this day and age of social media, Imran, it's a very long topic. Maybe I need to have another separate session with you discussing just that, because I have a lot of thoughts on that, and I would like to pick your brain as to what you think. Anyways, it has its good sides. It's amazing. At your fingertips, you can find out who's graduated. Someone has a child, anything good happening in their lives and what have you. But then it is also doing something to this next generation, which is this: every time you post something and there is a like, okay, that gives you a small burst of dopamine, feel good. So doing so, what it does, the effect that dopamine has is that it doesn't stop with the small burst. See, what it does is the next time you need a little higher dose. So on one hand, the attention span is totally disappearing. So we have gone from small, what they call abbreviations and stuff, to now even abbreviations are no good. Now we have emojis, okay? So how do you deal with that? Because some of the things in life, unfortunately, cannot be shortened. A pregnancy takes 9 months. It cannot be done in 9 days. Success in life doesn't happen overnight. Doesn't matter how many times you look at the Zuckerberg story or some of these. Well, that's just 1 in 7 billion. This is a fundamental problem that pervades our society, affects the education system, affects everything. Imran, your thoughts on that?
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. I think, frankly, you talked about parenting. I just want to mention that I think parenting should be, there should be lessons on parenting.
I agree.
In all as a mandatory course,
I agree.
Similarly, just like, kids are taught, not here, but in the West, kids are taught how to cross the road, for example. Right? Somebody comes into the classroom teaching you these life skills. We have to also teach them what to do and how to cope with social media, what not to do. Okay? This thing about likes, and this is a self-obsession of dopamine. We're getting just addicted to dopamine, right?
Absolutely.
Instead, so what we are just focusing on, how can we get more and more like, and you'll make up all kinds of things. What a waste of time. Like somebody said, Bangladesh has the second or third highest numbers on Facebook. Wow. I said, really? I think it's bad news. That means that's time they are not using effectively. It would be fine if you're using Facebook for, also learning process. You're using it to pick up things, skills, whatever. But if you're just using for chat and that's it, getting all these likes and snooping around, stalking here and there, who's doing what and what a waste of time. So these things have to be again taught in, I think, from primary school, frankly. You have to basically teach about how to behave. What is the social behavior we expect our future citizens on social media? I think we can't leave it to chance. We can't leave it to parents. I think education institutions must teach them.
So I believe teachers are a very important pillar of society. And as it is everywhere, I think they should be the highest paid. That's one of the things. They should be the highest paid. Why? Because they're grooming the future generation. Just the same as I believe a homemaker ought to be paid a salary from the government. So they also understand that this is an important task, and then you have premarital courses and stuff that you have to go through. anyways, these are some of my thoughts and stuff. But Imran, what I'm trying to say is that educators are the pillars, I believe, the most important pillars of society. We need to do whatever that is in our capacity to make sure that we attract the best and the most talented and have them properly trained, pay them the best, and for the sake of our future generation. In the same breath, as much as I want our teachers to be the highest paid, you know, for them to understand, as well as for society to understand the role that they play. But in the same breath, Imran, okay, the flip side of the coin is the teachers must not think of themselves as elitist, as someone who knows everything. I find that in teachers as well.
True. Actually, the best way to do that is if you allow your students in the class to have their laptops open with Wi-Fi. So, you know, teacher says something, some student Googles it and says, sir, you're absolutely wrong. This is something, you know. So that's the kind of classroom you must have. That students must be able to challenge teachers. Teachers do not have a unique right to say wrong things or whatever they think. These teachers are not supposed to be repositories of knowledge anymore.
Absolutely.
Right? Teacher is just a catalyst in the learning process, right?
Absolutely.
So that's fine. You know, I tell my students from day one, by the way, you know, I say a lot of wrong things. It's your job to catch me out, and I will not be held responsible because I'm just giving you the direction. The learning part is up to you.
Yeah. Like the saying goes, Imran, the more I know, the more I know how little I know.
Yeah.
Teachers are the first one that needs to understand that.
Yeah. So actually this elitist thing comes down to something I said, respect, mutual respect.
Absolutely.
That is by and large absent in our classrooms.
I agree.
I think the first thing, teachers must be willing to respect their students.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is a very alien concept in Bangladesh.
Yes, and we must by whatever means, we need to get it in there because, you know, it's not about the teachers, it's about the students.
Absolutely.
That's the job. It's not about you, it's the students.
Let me just say, for the students, the future is very hopeful. I would say to the students that don't wait for anybody or anything. If you feel you're in a classroom where the teacher is not good, or you're in a university where the learning process, what is stopping you from learning by yourself? You have at your fingertip YouTube, all these free courses, everything is there. You have the whole world's knowledge at your fingertips on your mobile phone. So my request to students is just don't wait for anybody.
Right.
Don't wait for anybody. You just learn what you have to learn with your friends, get together, and if you get anything from the classroom, well, that's a bonus.
I wish I had more time. When we're talking about fun things, time just runs away. So in any event, I really like to thank you so very much for joining us, Imran. It was indeed a pleasure. And I would really like to bring you back many, many more times to pick your brain and for us to discuss things that hopefully together we can come up with ideas and stuff that could make this whole process, the education system, the education and society in general, make it a better place. So with that, once again, thank you, Imran.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank our audience for joining us today with an invitation for you to join us again in our next session. Stay safe. Bye-bye.